I'm Sceptre and you're tuned into another Ableton live tutorial. In today's lesson we're going to be looking at making pads in Serum and then the process of working them into our track. So without further ado, let's get into the lesson. Cool, so here we are inside Ableton Live, and as always I'll play you through the project first. Cool, so let's start off with the Serum patch. If we load that up, I'll show you where kind of the starting point is with creating a patch in the first place. Cool, so this is one that I've made before, quite a few, all of different types. So let's start off with a blank one. So the thing to think about with pads really is you want to generate subtle movements and have kind of a flowing within the patch itself. So then when you modulate it later, you're adding to that initial effect. A bit like what I was talking about in the subs last week. If you make your sub more interesting in the first place, when you modulate it afterwards, you know, you'll get better results. So I'm going to go for maybe, I'll have a flick through some of the different waveforms until we find one that we like. So something quite subtle. Have two different waveforms for this one, just to create a bit more detail. Both with unison. And put a low pass filter. Put legato on, a bit of glide as well, but I might not use that. Try a bit of FM. So you can hear a movement now that the FM's adding as well. Let's get some LFOs on the wavetable position. I'm just trying to generate as much movement as I can, but nothing crazy. Put some reverb on there and delay. And try a bypass filter instead. So I just put a filter after there as well. and then pop an LFO on the filter itself. Come on. There we go. Just turn the delay down a little bit. So I like the second half more, so I think it's just because the filter's lower. Maybe try some different waveforms. It's nicer. Bit of noise with the noise oscillator. So we've got movement from the oscillators itself and then movement on the filter as well. Delay, reverb, and just another filter to tame the high frequencies when it does get a bit high. We'll try some chorus. And a bit of hyper. Probably a bit much, it gets a bit phasey. Just going to put that LFO on the noise level as well. Cool, so that's probably as far as I'd go in Serum, and at this point I'll just write a chord in. Turn those off for a moment. And add a little bit more delay on there. Nice, so it's flicking between the speakers there as well. So once we've got to that point, you could choose to keep that and create lots of different little variations out of it. In this case, I'm just going to resample it. And turn that Serum off for now. So then past this point, I like to use a delay rack, which I've made, which is here. I've called delay pad effects. So I've set up the macros so I can control 2 delay times that are separate, a reverb, and then a filter. So if we listen to what that's like as the basic setup. So it places it much further back in the speakers. Then as you can hear, when we change the 2 delay times, you get different artifacts in the tail. So you can choose to resample this then lots of times, and you'll end up with various changes in the tails, which you can then use structuring your track, and they'll all work together obviously because they come from the same sound. So what I like to do is, if you loop, say, this section, then we'll create another audio track, set the output of the track that you want to resample to, in this case, audio 25. Yeah, so set that to record on another track, and then you just keep tweaking these parameters and it will be recording it into the file underneath. Then you can just chop that up and take the little sections out of it which you might like. So in terms of fitting it into the track, if I just play this for you again to remind you of it. So what I've done here is created a group which has this same delay chain on it, and I've used those to kind of gel each of the little snippets together. Now I know, because I've created all these samples myself, what key they're in. So what I would advise you to do is get a few that you like the sound of initially, make sure that they're all in the right key and they fit together, and then just chop bits out of each one and arrange it. In terms of tips for arranging them in the first place, is try not to have one on bar 1, one on bar 2, one on bar 3, one on bar 4, because it just creates this kind of notchy feeling rather than something that's flowing in and out of itself. Another thing you can do is then sidechain it to the drums afterwards to give you a kind of subtle pumping effect, which can also sound quite good. So let's listen to those by themselves. So the ones that I worked as I was using it from top to bottom always start with ones that are effectively risers to go into the next phrase. So starting with the first one, and then used again but shorter, again but a different length, and then a repeat of the first two. Then I like to have an impact on the first one, and this was quite a long file, so I've just used a bit of the tail later on to maintain some continuity between the sounds. One that's roughly in the middle but starts just before the second bar. You can hear there that that had quite a lot of delay in the original file as well. One that's a bit more of an impact, and then another riser at the bottom. But they're all quite textured and made out of pads initially. So if you didn't want to, or if you don't have Serum, you could just get another pad from somewhere, or atmospheres. There you go, like that one would be ideal. If we pop that in the group, it's probably a bit too much low end in it, but take the low end out. Don't know what key that was in. E. So move that down to a D. and see where I've got a gap. Let's just listen to it, see where I've got a gap. So we could have it going over the top of where that little drum fill is. Maybe add an extra delay on there if you wanted to, just to give it a bit more tail. Now I'm using the Ableton delays in this just so you can replicate what I'm doing, but the one I usually use is Portal by Output. Is extremely good. It's very inspiring. It has lots of good, really good presets in it as well. And just automate the dry wet. And pop another one in just as an example. So I'm looking for stuff that has an impact in it. The longer type atmospheres you can use as the risers. I can maybe pop that in as a riser actually. So again, that's in E. So I'll just bring that down 2 semitones to make it a D. Touch longer. Maybe pop this one at the end. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't work. You just, you know, either chop it up a little bit more or try it in a different place or just delete it. There's no real, you know, you don't have to get it right first time, and you won't get it right first time every time. It's actually quite a nice one, it's quite bassy. Let me copy that one across. And then the more you do it, the more the pads start acting as if they're leads, and there's something that you can use to complement the groove of your track throughout. So do spend time working on them, and also in terms of creating different sections in your track, you can have different pads come in at different points, and it's a good thing for creating variation. So for some reason I've done this not on the grid, so I'm just going to move that over so it's not confusing me. So we've got, you know, 16 bars there. So let's copy that to another 16. Just get rid of this Serum and other bits now. Just move this shaker so it's happening. Oops! So it's happening on the second 16 instead. I'll probably stick another one in there as well. Or yeah, that kind of noise loop. Just sidechain that with the drums. Usually I'd have the kick and the snare split, but for this is just an example. do is take some of these pads out. So we'll leave the initial impact one in. We'll take that second one, so it's a bit more stripped back. We'll get rid of that one, leave that riser. Let's try that. Then you could have a completely stripped out section after that if you wanted to. I think the filter's gone a bit weird there. Yeah, it's still up. So yeah, have a completely stripped out section and then back into, don't know what I've done there, but that is a bit all over the place, but you get the idea. That is definitely not right. Let's try that again. No, not sure what I've done there. I've confused it. 16. So yeah, so that's our stripped out section there in the middle. Maybe leave that initial impact on there though. There we go. So an easy way of then using your pads as a lead and being able to develop separate sections by just taking those in and out. So realistically, that's 4 16s, which is 64 bars. That's all you need for your main drop or your main first section. So I created no variations in the bass there. There's minimal variations in the drums, but it kind of repeats a bit too often. We've got 2 sets of shakers and some pads, and it's enough to make 64 bars worth of content. So really, now when you're at this point is when you go in, you start making little edits, making small adjustments to each of those pieces to work it into something that you might consider finished. So hopefully that was helpful. I'll be giving 10 presets away for free on my website that are all pads. So hopefully they'll keep you inspired and give you something to work with from the outset as well. So I'll see you again after Christmas, but thanks again for watching. I'll see you soon.